What's up, you guys? We're talking UFC Vegas 111. This is the second of our back-to-back UFC Apex events that lead us up to that huge UFC 322 fight card that I cannot wait to see. I'm very intrigued to see how Islam Makhachev is going to look up at 170 as he takes on the phenom Jack Della Maddalena. So if you guys want, meet me in the comment section under this video and give me your early thoughts on how you see that fight going down, because I've been diving into the tape and I'm genuinely curious to see where our community stands. And give me your thoughts on the odds as well. That fight's going to be phenomenal. Back to the card that we're looking at here. No need for a big preview. Not a lot of star power to the card, but the fights should be exciting. We have the Bonfim brothers throwing down in the main event. Gabriel Bonfim takes on Randy Brown, which Rude Boy is looking to potentially bust his way into the rankings, right? If he could take out the number 14th ranked Bonfim, Randy Brown is not a bad fighter. I'm very excited to see how that fight takes place. Other than that, Marco Tulio takes on CLD. That's somewhat of an intriguing match, and the action will be good. All right, guys. So we'll jump right into the event. If you guys can, though, real quick, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and go follow me on my social media. We'll kick this thing off in the middleweight division as we have the former tough contestant Robert Valentin taking on Jackson McVey. Both of these fighters have a lot on the line in this matchup. I would say that Valentin has a little bit more to lose here, as he is the older fighter. And if he were to take a loss, he would be on a 4-fight losing skid. And you could pretty much guarantee that the UFC is going to part ways with him. And in McVey's case, he definitely doesn't want to kick his UFC career off by going 0-2. But at least he's 26 years old. He's a younger fighter. And if you remember, in his UFC debut, he took an L against Bruno Ferreira. He was completely mismatched. He should have never been in there with Bruno, as we saw how that fight played out. He was supposed to be facing off with Cedricus Dumas originally, then Christopher Ewart, all right, and those fights fell apart, and they threw him in there with Ferreira, and it went bad. Now, I will say this. What I didn't like about that fight is I thought that if it did go horrific for him, it was probably going to be him getting hit with a big shot on the feet. And it didn't exactly go like that. He was actually outmatched down on the mat as well, where he got caught in an armbar, which is not really a submission you see very often in the upper weight classes these days. And McVey has shown flashes with his grappling on the regional scene. I was a little surprised that he wasn't able to roll out of that armbar and put up a little bit more of a fight. Not to say he was going to go out there and get the job done, but I was disappointed in the performance, because one of the things that I kind of talked about going into that matchup was the fact that he had shown some grappling abilities. And, you know, maybe all the grappling abilities that he's shown in the past on the regional scene were a little bit more due to the fact that he was fighting very low-level competition. I mean, he has these long limbs. He'll snatch up a Darce choke on you and whatnot, but is he going to be able to do that against UFC-level competition? I don't know. All right, he's shown some flashes on the feet as well. He's long, but I think that Valentin is the better striker here. Of course, you guys remember the knockout that he had on the Ultimate Fighter over Yanez. That was nasty. Hit him up with that step-in elbow. Of course, that fight's not listed as an official bout, but we know it was, and it was a brutal KO. And he followed that up with a submission over Paddy McCory. That led him up to that bout with Ryan Loder. And even though he was finished in the second round, he had some moments in that fight. If you remember, he took Loder's back. He showed some grappling abilities, but specifically, I think that he can have a lot of success in this bout by keeping the fight standing and being the better striker. I think that's where he has an advantage. I'm interested to see how the grappling exchanges go, because maybe McVey is actually really a fraud and he's just not tested. And maybe we even see Valentin get on the back and sink in a choke and expose McVey as just being a complete fraud. There is that type of possibility. Valentin has been losing his recent bouts, but you take a look at the level of competition. I think that Finney is a tough outing for many. Okay, the pressure he pushes with his grappling, it's a lot for people to deal with, and it may be boring. All right, the judges actually gave Finney a split decision there. That was crazy, if you guys remember that. But he had 13 minutes of control time. Valentin actually did stuff a good amount of takedowns. He stuffed 9 takedowns. He was working his way there against the cage, and I think that there are signs that he should be able to deal with any type of wrestling that McVey throws his way. So if Valentin keeps this fight standing, I like him getting the job done here, not putting him to the fire based off his last bout against Ateba Gatier, who is just a freak. And I actually think that Valentin showed some toughness in that bout. He took a lot of damage. He was never really looking for a way out. He just, he got ran through, and it is what it is. McVey, imagine how McVey would look against Gatier. So I'm not putting Valentin under the fire for that loss there. And I think that he can get the job done here. I have a little bit more faith in him. He's more battle tested. He's been in there with higher level competition. So I will side with Robzilla here. And I'm going to say he finds a finish in this bout. Remember, I'm talking about his striking here a lot, but he's actually a fighter that has the bulk majority of his finishes coming by way of submission. He's shown a lot of development with his striking, and he's rounding his game out. I question McVey after that UFC debut performance. I question where his head's at as well. And if Valentin brings the fight to him, I think that he could break him and find a finish. Now, not a lot of confidence on the call here, as Robzilla needs to prove more to us. But I like the pick. And as far as the odds go, I have this line where it's currently at being pretty accurate, with Robzilla being a -145. I think that's where I have this fight capped. So we'll see where it goes. If you can catch some value, maybe that line dips down and you can catch him as like a -130, as we saw it open up over here as a -150, and it's starting to shorten up. Final call is going to be Robzilla to get the job done in the first round. I'm liking the under 1.5 here. You could see a club and sub. You could see the finish come in a variety of ways, but I'm calling an early finish for Robzilla. Hyder Amil takes on Jamall Emmers at 145, and Amil is looking to bounce back here after he just took his first ever professional loss, and it was a brutal one. If you guys remember, Jose Delgado caught him with a nasty knee. It was a quick finish. What we saw from Amil once again is that he is very aggressive. He stormed across the cage in that fight. That's exactly what we see him do every single time. He's a well-rounded fighter. I believe that he has underrated boxing skills. I do know that that's actually an aspect of his game that he puts in a lot of time on. You definitely can say that Amil has looked undersized at times for this division, and that's going to be the case here for sure, because Emmers has a freakish frame for 145. But that really hasn't given Amil too many issues in the past. You look at the Gomes fight. That was a fight that he had a lot of success in. Whether or not you had him winning it, it was a close one. I mean, he still had a lot of success in that bout. He was the underdog. And the reason why that length disadvantage doesn't give him too many issues is because he really knows how to cut the cage off, and he pressures just about like no other. Okay, he's going to be in Emmers' face all throughout this fight, as long as he doesn't get caught with the big shot. Because, I mean, the strike that was just landed on him by Delgado, it's something to pay attention to. Okay, getting knocked out like that when you're 35 years old, and Emmers does have some pop on his strikes. He's a technical striker. If Emmers doesn't catch him coming in, I don't think that the length necessarily is going to give Amil too many issues, if you guys know what I'm saying. I don't expect Emmers just to cruise on the outside and outpoint Amil to a decision. I think that this fight's going to get ugly, and Amil thrives in that ugliness. Okay, you look back at what he did to Lee and Garcia. He ended up closing the distance and catching them. I think that the power is there. I know it took about 38 strikes to get Lee out of there, and it took a lot to get Garcia out of there as well. But you could tell they feel it, man. They were stunned. I mean, Lee didn't really know where he was at. That's the reason why Amil was able to just bombard him. It's because he was kind of already out on his feet. And if you want to see him hit more of those one-hitter quitter type of strikes, we have seen it in the past. You look back at the Chase Gibson fight. He hurt Gibson really bad in that one. So I think that the power is there. And I don't really know how much power you need to put Emmers out right now, because he has shown that as good of a fighter as he is, because I do have high praise for Emmers. I think he's a very technical fighter, but he is a fighter that drops the ball continuously in big bouts. You think about the Nate Landwehr fight. Okay, he was up early on in the first round, and then as Nate continued to pressure him and cut the cage off, he clipped him with the shot, and he hurt him. And once Emmers is hurt, he's one of those types of fighters that's he's a baby deer out there. He's skating around, and I easily think Amil could put him in that type of situation. Emmers has a lot of talent, but he has made these fight-ending mistakes quite often. You think about when Pat Sabatini caught him in a heel hook. Now, I don't think that that's too much of a threat here with Amil, but he's made these types of mistakes. The Julian Rosa loss that took place on DWCS, where Emmers was a big favorite, that wasn't a good look for him either. Once the fight started to really pick up and heat up, he made that mistake, and it cost him. And I think that the chin does have some issues. We've seen him knocked out on the regional scene. He got finished by Thiago Moises way back in the day over in RFA. right? We've seen him sub back in the day as well. And maybe it's coming off like I'm being a little bit too harsh on Emmers. I want to be clear. He does bring a lot to the table. Okay, he's a technical striker. He has great length. He has grappling abilities as well. I am decently high on him as a fighter, but there are some deficiencies that I see in his game, and my gut's telling me that a fighter like Amil, who's coming in extremely motivated here, can capitalize on them. That's my gut. I like Emmers, but I just think that Emil's pressure is going to be a lot to deal with. I kind of feel like Emmers has to catch him early with something to get the job done here. All right, you may say, "Oh, well, can't Emmers just create space and use his footwork and outpoint Amil?" I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case here, because I think that this is going to be a tornado of a fight. Amil has crazy cardio, and I don't think that Amil is going to allow himself just to go out like that. So he's going to close the distance, and he's going to look to hurt Emmers. And that Nate Landwehr bout is just fresh on my mind, because I remember sitting in the Hard Rock with the big old ticket in my hand, and that one cost me pretty bad there. And listen, Emmers is a good fighter, and he's very live to get the job done here. Amil was just KO'd a couple months ago. We'll see how the chin holds up. But I like Amil. I do. I like Amil. This dude has the heart of a lion. I love who he trains with and who he surrounds himself with. He's an absolute dog. I will pick him to get the job done here. I'd say that he finds a TKO stoppage over Emmers, and it'll be similar to one of those exciting ones that he's already put on inside the UFC. That'll be fun to watch. We'll see how it plays out. You take a look at the line here where Amil opened up as a -103, and we see action coming in on him. And so people, they're kind of, I mean, it's early on, not a lot of movement here, but we see some people kind of with the same thought process that I have here, as they just know that Amil is a dog and he's coming to get another W inside the octagon. End of the first, or maybe even into the second round, Amil finds the TKO stoppage, an earlier finish for him. Hey guys, just a very quick interruption. Of course, if you guys want my official targets for this fight card, you guys know you can email me or DM me on Instagram, and I'll give you further details. I got a couple different options, including if you sign up through my referral link to a specific sportsbook, you'll get an added bonus to your account, as well as getting an entire month free to my sports betting picks, which also will include my complete sports betting package, which you'll get NFL picks, college football picks, and the NBA has picked up as well. So you got all that going on. If you're interested, shoot me a message. Now, this is an interesting clash taking place in the heavyweight division here, as both of these fighters are making their UFC debuts, and both of them have polarizing backgrounds in their specific disciplines, if you will. In the case of the incredible Hulk, Josh Hokit, who just had a big victory on DWCS, we know he has a respectable wrestling background, representing Fresno State, and he also played football collegiately and worked his way onto the 49ers practice squad. Okay, so this is a real athlete. Okay, you have to understand that. This is a legitimate athlete that's trying to make a run in the UFC's heavyweight division. On the other hand, Max Gimenis is a fighter that worked his way into the MMA world a couple of years back, but had already had a very decorated jiu-jitsu background. He's been in there with all the big names: Gordon Ryan, Nicky Rod, Victor Hugo. I mean, he's been in there with all those types of grapplers, and he's been tested a lot with that part of his game, but we haven't really seen him tested much as far as him being a real fighter. Now, I guess you could try to say the same thing about Hokit, as he just has 6 professional fights. There's not a lot of cage time. A lot of these fights are ending early. The strength of schedule's nothing to rave about, but I wouldn't really be in agreement, because I just think he's passing the eye test. I really do. I think that he has high fight IQ for a fighter that just has these 6 professional fights. I like the team that he surrounds himself with Jackson Wink and all that. I love the confidence that he has shown. I think there's something behind the confidence. There's a reason why he's calling out big heavyweight names right off the rip, and he thinks he can hang with the best of them. This is a dude that says he never gets tired. He says he can go 15, 20 rounds. And I mean, I don't know about all that, but I have a feeling that this is a fighter that, as he goes to the later rounds, will be in good shape. Okay, this is an ex NFL player. Okay, he was on the practice squad, but this is a legitimate athlete, and I don't think he's going to be a slouch. I don't think he's going to be gassing out. Now, where he could be tested here against Gimenis is if he doesn't get an early finish, and you start to see a lot of wild scrambles, and the size of Gimenis, and of course the jiu-jitsu skills that he has starts to play a factor, and he gets on top of Hokit and wears him out, or puts him in a vulnerable position and subs him. I mean, there's that type of potential. but I think that Hokit, his footwork, his wrestling ability should be able to keep him out of that situation. And on the outside, from what I've seen from both these fighters, now there's limited amount of tape on Gimenis, but from what I've seen, I think that Hokit will be at a major advantage. I think his boxing skills are there. He pumps the jab and he fights intelligently. He doesn't really put himself out there too much, which I like. And I think that he should be able to really put in a lot of damage from the outside and should be able to sprawl. And if he fights a smart fight, I think he just avoids going to the mat and eventually wears Gimenis out. And if he does go down to the mat, he goes there in the later rounds and he finds himself in top position where he could maybe land a bunch of nasty ground and pound on a more gassed Gimenis. And you look at some of Gimenis's jiu-jitsu matches that he's had, not to take anything away from him, but in some of the matches that you've seen him lose, he starts off hot early and starts breathing heavily. You see him get his back taken. He gets a rear naked choke sunk on him or something like that. He carries excess weight. He's large, but I think that Hokit will have an advantage as far as the cardio and his overall game goes. And I will side with him to get the job done. And I think that he can get a finish here. I think that he can get a finish in the second round, maybe in the third round, where he finds himself in top position and he can posture up and just start to rain down some ground and pound. And I don't know if he puts Gimenis unconscious, but he could start to land so many strikes that the referee has to stop in and he gets a stoppage like that. Now, as we look at where the money line for this fight is, as we see Josh opened up as a minus 460. He's currently a minus 415. At one point in time, he was a minus 320. So we have some interesting movement going on here. I just don't know if I'm willing to trust Josh right now with the limited amount of experience that he has and with us not seeing enough from him. I don't know if I'd be able to trust him at this line. I think that the value's on the dog. We'll see if Gimenis can show some evolution in his game, but he is very large and he has serious jiu-jitsu skills. Maybe he can get on top position and be a threat to pull off a sub in an ugly fight where you see some scrambles going on. So we'll see about that. He's very untested. I feel more comfortable backing Hokit here, but I would want him somewhere down more like as a minus 300 or something like that. So not a lot of confidence in the pick. I think the value's on the dog, but this fight very well will play out with Josh rising to the occasion and just being the better athlete and the better mixed martial artist. And he probably finds a TKO stoppage. That will be the call. Second to third round TKO stoppage. I'll say the fight hits the over. Adrian Yanez takes on Cristian Quiñonez in the bantamweight division. And this should be a real striker's delight, as both fighters have shown they like to throw down on the feet. Typically, that's a good thing for Yanez when he's matched up against a fellow striker, because it gives him the ability to showcase his very technical offensive boxing skill set that he has. But it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because I think he does lack defensively. You take a look at two of his more recent losses where he was stopped. Okay, it was the Rob Font fight where he took a lot of damage to the head. He was stopped in the first round. The other stoppage was due to him eating a bunch of leg kicks, which he shows to be too heavy on that lead leg, and it cost him there. But Jonathan Martinez has been known to do that to people. Okay, but it's not just those two fights where he has shown his defensive deficiencies. You take a look at the Davey Grant fight, the Randy Costa fight. All right, he lost the first round against Costa. He took a lot of damage there. So we have seen at times it takes him a while to get things going, and he'll put himself in danger. And the older he gets and the more damage that he's accumulated, and as he's climbed up the ladder fighting higher level competition, it could be a little bit of an issue, and it has been a little bit of an issue. Now, I don't know if Quiñonez is necessarily that guy. He shows to have decent power. I would say technically he's not on the same level as a Yanez, but if Yanez is going to go out here and just throw caution to the wind, I do believe that it is possible and very likely that we see him knocked out in this fight, or we see him get TKO'd. I think that Quiñonez is live to land a KO in this fight. We have seen the power on display. You think about what he did to Khalid Taha. He got an early stoppage there. He had a pretty respectable victory against Xiao Long on DWCS. Xiao is a fighter that should now be 3-0 inside the UFC. Okay, he had two bad decisions. We just recently talked about that, but that was a decent performance by him. Now, in his last two fights, we saw the grappling cost him. He got submitted in both those fights by rear naked choke. We'll see if Yanez tries to take the fight that direction. I highly doubt that would be the case. But you also note this, it's not like we haven't seen Quiñonez knocked out in his own right. Now, his knockout losses came early on, where he was finished on the regional scene twice, way back in the day, dating back to like 2018 and 2016 or whatnot. So we haven't seen that issue really stick around with him. And if we do see a knockout in this fight, it's really hard to say because Yanez is more dangerous offensively, but I question him defensively more so. All in all, I'm going to say that Yanez gets the better of Quiñonez. If this fight were to go to a decision, I would feel pretty confident it's Yanez getting the job done as he lands the mark a little bit more fluidly. And I think that he would be ahead on the numbers. If we see a stoppage, I'm kind of torn, as I said, because it can go either way with Yanez. With that all being said, I'm going to say Yanez gets the job done, and I'm a little torn if I want to pick him to get this fight done by way of knockout, because I think that the decision is there. You take a look at his last bout against Daniel Marcos. That was a very closely contested match. It went to a split decision. I don't think that he was robbed by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a competitive fight, and Marcos is he's a tricky customer. I think that Marcos he brings more to the table than a Quiñonez, and I think that Yanez right now he's still a fighter that's cruising into his prime. I think he's working on a lot of things, and if he comes in a little bit more measured and plays this fight a little bit safer, he should be the fighter that's out ahead. Quiñonez, he's not there technically to the same level as a Yanez. He's not, if you watch the tape, but we'll see if Yanez avoids making a blatant mistake in this fight. Where am I going to go with my pick here? First, I'll say this. I like Yanez more around a minus 185, 190 as this line is continuing to get heavier. I'm not crazy about it. I wouldn't want to target Yanez as high as like a minus 220, 230, where this line seems to be trending towards. I'm not crazy about it. I have my concerns with him. I'm going to say Yanez gets the job done. I'm going to say this fight goes to a decision. I'm going to say Quiñonez holds up and Yanez is out ahead, or he's slightly ahead with the strikes, but he doesn't find his own finish. It's still possible he could land his own KO though, and he's dangerous. So we'll see how that plays out. Not a lot of confidence on the method of victory, but I'll side with my old friend Yanez to get his hand raised. So this was a newer added matchup to the event as both these fighters lost their initial opponents. Daniel Marcos was supposed to be taking on Felipe Lima, and that fight was supposed to take place at the end of the month, where Miles Johns was supposed to be fighting on the card prior to this against Moon Gafarov. All right, now they're matched up against each other. And with this being such a newly added fight to the event, it's the only bout that I don't have odds on. I kind of find this fun, right? We did this for the last event, and we called the odds very accurately on that Kuwamba versus Lee bout, right? The opening odds were almost exactly what I called. We started to see a little bit of action move around, but let's see if I can call this line as correctly as that one. And it just makes it interesting. I kind of like when this happens once in a while. Not too often, because I do like to dissect the odds that we have available. But stick with me here. I'll tell you who I think is going to open up as the favorite. Now, Marcos does come into this fight off of his first ever professional loss. A lot of us had him losing to Davey Grant a couple years ago. Somehow he got the nod there. It was still a closely contested match. But in his last bout against Montel Jackson, he took his first legitimate L. So I'm interested to see where his head's at. I like what I've seen from Marcos throughout the years. I think that he's not a bad fighter. We talked about the Yanez victory he recently had. That was his second most recent bout. I call this a victory against Arichi Lang. Went to a no contest, but we saw him really handling business in there, and that victory has kind of aged well after what we just saw Arichi Lang do in the cage recently. But I like what I've seen from him overall because he checks off a lot of boxes. The cardio's there. The takedown defense is typically there. His striking is fluid. He can hang around with high-level strikers, and if you're not up to par there, he'll take advantage of you. He really works the leg kicking game. That's something that we could see him bring to the table here. On the other hand, Miles Johns, this is a fighter that, he's very physically strong. He has wrestling abilities. He has decent power in his hands, but technically he's not there. He's not there, and I think that Marcos is going to be ahead in the striking. I think that Marcos is going to be more technical. I think that he can unravel a lot of different things there on the feet. As I mentioned, mixing in the kicks with the hands, and I like Marcos to get the better there, and I think that Marcos should have success stuffing the takedowns, and as he does that, that's the recipe to success. I'm going to say Marcos wins this fight. I'm going to lean towards him winning via decision. I know that he has a fair share of knockouts. A lot of them came before joining the UFC. We haven't really seen him running through opposition inside the UFC. You take a look at his recent victories. Essentially, he had 4 decision victories in a row dating back to when he stopped Simon Oliveira. And then on the other hand, yeah, Johns has shown that he is there to be finished. I mean, we've seen him submitted and finished via strikes. When you think about, I think Batista caught him with that flying knee, and he was subbed by John Castaneda, if I remember correctly, via arm triangle choke. So, I mean, he has shown that he is there to be finished to an extent. But all in all, I would say he's decently durable. He fights a little bit safer at times as well. He'll act like he's in the pocket throwing these haymakers, but if you really dive into the tape and look at like his recent bout against Douglas Silva de Andrade, he was acting like he was willing to go to war, but he really wasn't. He had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and he was backpedaling a little bit. And I think that he fights safe enough to avoid being finished. He wasn't finished against G Matsumoto or Felipe Lima. Those are 2 fighters that are that I rate decently highly. I think Johns can make it to the final bell. I'm going to say that Marcos wins this fight via decision. I'm going to say that Marcos opens up around a -150 favorite. I'm going to go somewhere around that ballpark, and I'm going to say he settles in as the favorite going into the fight. I don't know where the movement's going to go, but I think that Marcos should and will be around that range as a -150 favorite. Maybe a -160. We'll see. I'm interested to see where the line opens up, but I think he should be the favorite, and I'll say he wins via decision. We got some ranked women's strawweight action set to take place here between Tecia Pennington, who's ranked 13th. She's taking on the number 15th ranked Denise Gomes. There's a real contrast in age. Pennington now is 36 years old, right? Formerly known as Tecia Torres. We've been watching her for a long time. She used to train at American Top Team when she was young, and she was on The Ultimate Fighter. Of course, she worked her way over to the West Coast, and she since has married Raquel Pennington, current UFC fighter. And Pennington is a true professional. Gomes is just 25. There's a lot of room for improvement still, and she's looked pretty good already. Right? There's good power in her hands. Her striking is pretty intimidating. We've seen her kind of impose her will on the opposition. Where we have seen her struggle before, you look back to the Angela Hill fight. That was a fight where we saw her takedown defense cost her a bit, right? She was taken down 5 times on 9 attempts against a fighter in Angela Hill who was never even really known for her grappling. That wasn't the best look. Like I said, though, she's young. There's plenty of time to work that out. And since that loss, she goes in there and she goes on a 3-fight winning streak, defeating Eduarda Mora, who is a pretty tough up-and-coming fighter, Karolina Kovacevic, and Elise Reed, and she just got the stoppage on Reed. So it looks like she has the train back on the tracks. Pennington has looked good. Remember, she was away from fighting for some time, and she's made a return. And you take a look at the level of competition and the overall resume. It doesn't look bad. Okay, she has victories over fighters like Sam Hughes, Angela Hill, who we just talked about. The losses come by way of Mackenzie Dern, the current champ, Tabitha Ricci. Then she has victories over the former champion Carla Esparza and Luana Pinheiro. And the Pinheiro fight, though, it was actually Pennington that got taken down quite a few times. She was taken down 5 times on 10 attempts. And the reason why I bring that up is because Pennington has never really shown to be a solid grappler. That's never been her strength. She's never really sharpened that up. She's decent there as far as not getting exploited and taken down and controlled. She'll work her way back up to her feet. But I don't think that she's the type of fighter that's going to be able to go out here and take Gomes down and exploit her there. And I don't even know if that's what she's going to want to do, even if she could, or if she had the ability to potentially do that. She likes her striking. She feels confident in her striking. I think she's going to go toe-to-toe with Gomes here. And I think that the size, the youth, and the power of Gomes is going to be the difference. I'm going to side towards Denise getting the job done. And we take a look at the line. She is -210 on the money line right now. And I think that I don't think there's a ton of value on that line because Tecia is game. She's live, and this fight can definitely play out somewhat closely. But I like Gomes to get the job done. I have her capped more as like a -180 favorite. She should be the favorite without a doubt. I don't know how far you want to stretch it. But you probably see strides in Gomes' game, and it's going to be a lot for the aging Tecia to deal with. So give me Gomes to get the job done via decision. Tecia has never been finished. She's very durable, very tough. Even if she gets hurt badly in this fight, I say she pushes through to the final bell. In what is, without a doubt, the most shallow division in the sport, the women's bantamweight division, we have one of the rare up-and-coming bright spots here in Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She'll be taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. Don't forget, it was Silva that just fought for the vacant bantamweight championship against Raquel Pennington, and she did come up short there. But Silva is not to be completely overlooked here, especially when you understand that as good as Cavalcanti has looked, specifically with her measured striking, she really hasn't been tested against a high-level grappler, or you could even push it and say she hasn't been tested against a competent grappler. I mean, take a look at the strength of schedule. The UFC really has been grooming her the right way. Look at these matchups. Her first UFC victory was against Zara Farin. We don't have to completely overlook the Melissa Croden victory that took place over in LFA. Croden looked really good in her UFC debut, and in fact, she was supposed to be fighting on this card, but I wouldn't say that Croden's grappling is anything to rave about. Farin, her grappling is nothing to talk about. Jose and Nunez is a striker. Nora Cornol is a striker. Julia Avila is an aged fighter that, I mean, her grappling is nothing to rave about either. So Mayra Bueno Silva is going to be a big step up in competition there. We know that she is a slick grappler. Not only can she have success controlling you down on the map, but she's very opportunistic as far as finding the finish. It hasn't been going that way as of recently, but I mean, you scroll down, she pulled off the knee bar against Lena Landsberg. She pulled off a beautiful armbar against Stephanie Egger. She also pulled off her patented armbar against Mayra Romero Barella and Jillian Robertson, which the Robertson armbar submission looks really good these days. That was a much younger and more green version of Jillian, but that's a major feather in her cap. And what do you think that she did on DWCS against Mayana Souza? She pulled off another submission. She pulled off a ninja choke. I mean, so she is dangerous there. She is aging. She's 34 years old. You got to wonder where the motivation is. She does seem to be a little lackluster in the cage as of recently. She kind of has almost like this sparring type of vibe that she just kind of flows in there. But don't get it twisted. If you make a mistake, she's very opportunistic and she will take advantage of that. I just don't know if Cavalcanti is going to leave an opening like that. And I don't know if Mayra is going to be able to get this fight down to the mat early on where she would be more dangerous. So far, Cavalcanti has posted an 84% takedown defensive ratio, although against lower level competition. I don't know if Mayra has the wrestling ability to get it there. We'll see. We'll see if she tries to pull something tricky. But as far as how the striking exchanges are going to go, I think Cavalcanti is going to look better than ever. And I already like what I've been seeing from her. Okay, her combinations are going to be much more dangerous, much more smooth. And they're going to outnumber the volume that Mayra is going to be able to put there. Mayra doesn't really flow the combinations together as smoothly. I think she's going to be outmatched. I mean, you take a look at the numbers here where you see Cavalcanti has almost been landing 6 strikes per minute compared to Mayra's 3.8. And Mayra is there to be hit as well, as she's been landed on at 4.85 strikes per minute. And Cavalcanti has shown to be very technical defensively as well. So Cavalcanti needs to keep this fight standing. That's where she has a major advantage. This is a step up in competition. I'm going to say she passes this test, but there is definitely a path to victory for Mayra, without a doubt. Okay, she may pull off a slick submission early on, or if she consistently can get this fight to the mat, if she just gets it there for a second, you may see her control Cavalcanti for an entire round. Maybe she takes her back and just is leaps ahead with her jiu-jitsu and can control rounds. But she needs to consistently get the fight to the mat to at least take 2 of the rounds if she doesn't find that sub early on. And also just remember too, man, Mayra has that 5-round experience. She's been in there with much higher level competition. There are some things going there, which is going to point me towards saying there's not a lot of value on this line. There's not. That's my honest feeling on it. I like Cavalcanti, but I need to see her pass this test before I'm backing her in a spot like this, where she's as high as a -280 favorite. I would like this line to come down if I would like to back her. I'd be looking at Cavalcanti to win this fight via decision. I could see her methodically chipping her way to a decision. I don't know if she's going to land any fight-ending sequence. We'll see about that. So give me Cavalcanti to win a decision. I would be eyeing this money line to come down towards like a -210. I don't know if it's going to get there. And I would be eyeing maybe even sneaking out that decision victory there to get that line to come down. So as we jump up to the main card, this middleweight match is probably my most anticipated fight of the event. Marco Tulio takes on Cristian Leroy Duncan, CLD. I think that both of these fighters are quite high level. Neither of them have a ranking next to their name right now, but I think it's very likely that we could see, if not one, both of these men eventually ranked towards the top of this division. You take a look at their age, right? 31 and 30 years old. They still have time to get things going here as they enter their prime, and they've already shown some high-level stuff inside the cage. But you take a look at the current rankings, and you take a look at fighters like Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze. Hell, I'll even throw Jared Cannonier's name in the mix, and some of you may not like it, but you take a look at his age. It's only inevitable that those types of fighters are going to be bumped out of this division, and I think that these are the types of names that you're going to see replace them. I truly believe that. Marco Tulio, we were a little harsh on him. I say we, as a whole, the MMA community, we were a little harsh on him after that first performance on DWCS. You take a look at it now, Yusri Belgari has looked phenomenal, okay? And he hasn't lost since that fight. And Tulio fought a safer fight, and you can kind of understand why that was the case now in retrospect. And you got to give him credit for going out there and doing what he needed to do to defeat a high-level fighter. And since then, we've seen him have more of that eagerness in the cage, right? He's finished every single fight since that decision victory, and he's going out there. He's finishing these fights early. He's barely being touched. We can discuss the level of competition. It's not extremely high, but when you see what he's doing and the way he's moving, I mean, this is a shoot box fighter that's in the upper weight class, and he's looking as calculated and dangerous as some of the fighters that are down there in the lighter weights. I mean, this dude is legit. How about Tresean Gore when he finished him right before even the final finishing sequence? How about the head kick that he landed, like breaking through the guard? I mean, there's serious power there. He's very measured. He slips and rips. He's a dangerous striker. And then CLD, this dude is unorthodox. He's a great athlete. He's very long for the division. We had our eye on him before he even joined the UFC. Of course, he was a big-time prospect. He was fighting not only in the middleweight division, up in the light heavyweight division, over in Cage Warriors. And he's came into the UFC and he's had a lot of success. And without a doubt, he's looking better than ever right now. We could talk about the two losses that he's had. I think that the Arman Petrosian loss, it's a much uglier one when you think about how that fight played out. Just Arman, I know he had the striking background, but that's a fight that even at that time you would expect CLD would get the better. Petrosian took a lot of L's after that, and he did outstrike CLD 111-73, and he even had a takedown against him. That was a bad look, all right? For a fighter like Petrosian to take you down, I know it was just one time, but to control you for over 3 minutes, that wasn't a good look. And the Gregory Rodriguez fight, we know that G-Rod is a beast, but he also took him down 4 times, controlled him for about 8 minutes, and he outstruck him 78-53. But there's really no shame in losing to a fighter like Gregory Rodriguez. I rate him very highly. But if there's a little bit of a separator here, you could say CLD has been in there with higher level opponents, but he has fallen short before. Meanwhile, Tulio so far is just, he's coming through time and time again. He had an early loss in his career where he was knocked out. That was a long time ago. I think it was like back in 2017, 18, and he has taken his game to another level. So I am siding with Tulio here. I think in a measured striking type of affair, I feel a little bit more confident backing Tulio. And Tulio, he unravels, some wild stuff too. I mean, remember the spinning back kick that he landed on his second fight on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, he can mix it up too. He throws flying knees. He throws all that out there just as CLD does. I think if we were to see a fighter get a takedown and have some control time, I think I would favor Tulio getting that. And I just think he's a little bit more game. I think his ceiling's a little bit higher. And I'm going to side with Tulio to get the job done. But I really do like what CLD brings to the table. We take a look at the line here. I hope I'm not repeating myself, but this, to me, is a quite accurate line. It is. If anything, I would lean a little bit more towards the side of maybe Tulio could even be as high as a -160, -155. But this is pretty accurate. I have a lean towards Tulio's way, but you still got to respect what CLD brings to the table. This should be a great fight. Now we got to make a call. Are we going to see a knockout in this bout, it's very likely. Either way, both of these fighters have shown that they have that finishing ability, right? Tulio has finished 8 of his 14 victories, 2 undocumented. So, I mean, the ratio is high. CLD has 9 knockouts out of his 12 victories. We saw what he just did to Eric Anders, hit him with the spinning back elbow. Now, CLD has also looked pretty durable. Can Tulio get him out of there? I'm going to lean towards Tulio winning a decision here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a finish in this fight. But I am leaning towards this fight going the distance. I think we're going to see a little bit more of the measured Tulio as he has respect for what CLD is bringing to the table. And we have also seen when CLD is in there with a higher caliber, more high caliber opponent, he gives them a little bit more respect as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if this fight makes it to the final bell. Give me Marco Tulio to win a decision. This welterweight match is the absolute definition of a banger. Muslim Salikhov, the king of Kung Fu, takes on the doctor, Uros Medic. Both of these fighters display big knockout power. They like to stand and trade, and that's exactly what I'm expecting here. I think that both of these fighters are going to oblige each other in a stand-up war, and I think it's going to be a treat to us as fight fans. And I'll tell you right now, I think it's very likely we're going to see a knockout in this bout, because not only have we seen both of these fighters have that great knockout ability, but we've also seen from both these fighters that they're far from indestructible, all right? In Uros Medic's case, okay, just before he had that phenomenal knockout victory over Gilbert Urbina, which we could talk a little bit more about that in a second, he was ran through by Seriano, Punahele Seriano, the welterweight version. So don't be too harsh on him, because the welterweight version has looked much better. Seriano's a beast right now. He keeps going out there and getting his hand raised. Okay, but he was finished in just 31 seconds by Punahele. All right, so the chin has been ruffled up recently, and we know that Salikhov can crack. So it's not out of the realm at all to think that Salikhov can finish him up in that fashion. Where we have seen more of an issue throughout the years from Medic is with his grappling. We saw Miktabek Orolbey just be leaps and bounds ahead of him there and just ragdolled him up into the point he subbed him. Even Jalen Turner had a first-round submission against him. He hit him with the rear naked choke back in the day. But besides those couple of mishaps, he's looked really good. You could also say, he didn't have a great start to the Matthew Semmelsberger bout, but what a way to finish that fight. I mean, the way he came back in the third round and got that knockout, still having that fight-ending power late in the fight was a good look. The Tim Means, we talked, and like I said, the Urbina fight that just happened. The way his head movement was working in there, the slipping and ripping and the power that he possessed, I think he definitely has the ability to knock Salikhov out in this fight. We've seen Salikhov knocked out not just once, but twice in the octagon. You think about the Randy Brown KO. That was a nasty knockout. The way that he got touched and put out by a fighter like Brown, who's not necessarily known for his one-touch type of power, it's a little alarming. You think about when the Leech put him out as well back in 2022. All right, so he has been finished twice inside the octagon. You mix that with the fact that he is 41 years old. I know he still looks phenomenal and he's moving really good in there, but you mixed his age and the fact that I've seen him hurt a little bit more, twice compared to the once of Medic, and I really like what I'm seeing from Medic. He has the youth. He's 32. I am going to side with Medic here. Not a lot of confidence behind this pick. I think that this is an extremely close bout, but I think that it's a little bit more likely that we see Medic hurt Salikhov, or if we don't see a knockout, I think we could see Medic start to pick the pace up as the fight goes and have a little bit more volume with his strikes, and it can kind of outpoint Salikhov in a couple of rounds, maybe digging deep late and taking this fight. So I'm going to side with Medic to win this fight. This is a hard call. I don't want to just keep throwing out knockouts, but I think this is it's very likely we see a knockout in this bout. I'm going to say Medic finds it. But I'm going to throw this out there. Take a look at what you could find as far as this fight not to go the distance, or if you like either fighter to target them to win this fight via KO, or you're looking at the under a round and a half or something like that. If you see some good value there, and maybe this is a fight that we talk about if we get a specific bet episode out for, but this is an interesting bout that it's one where I think we find a finish. Now, Medic opened up as a minus 180 here. I think you guys know I'm not going to be in agreement with this line. He's currently right around a minus 200. I like what I've been seeing from him. I like the potential he has, but I don't think that he should be this big of a favorite over Salikhov. Salikhov still looks good. He's dangerous, and this is a fight that could very well play out closely. So value is on the dog here for me. We have the oldest of the Bonfim brothers, Ismael Bonfim. He's taking on Chris Taco Padilla. Padilla comes into this fight off of a victory. It's one that's worth mentioning, at least from my standpoint, because I was very excited to see him sneak off that split decision against Jai Herbert. It was an official target for me. He came in at plus odds, but I do have a little bit of an issue with the performance, okay? And the issue I had was he had about zero killer instinct in that fight. He went out there with a very tactical type of fight style that, in a way, you could look at it two ways, right? It's like, oh, well, he was doing what he needed to do to get the job done. But in reality, a lot of what he was doing, playing it so safe, could have cost him the fight. If he would have opened up a little bit more, he could have easily solidified rounds. Judges, at times, we know, they like to see damage. They like to see aggressiveness. And the way he was playing that fight, it could have easily not went his way, as Herbert was the aggressor. And I didn't like the way that played out because it really had me at the edge of my seat. And I thought it was a fight that was much more convincingly winnable for him. And if he comes into this fight with those same kind of tactics, it could be a little bit of a problem if he doesn't find a finish, because Bonfim is very aggressive and he's going to push the pace and he's going to look to push volume on Taco here, right? You take a look at what Taco has done besides the Herbert fight. People are high on him because of that beautiful step and elbow that he hit Zhu Rong with. It was nasty. I mean, it was one of the better elbows that we've ever seen inside the octagon. And then the James Jean-Top fight, that was one where he came in. It was his UFC debut. He was a very overlooked fighter, and the way that he just ragdolled him down to the mat and pulled off that rear naked choke, it was very impressive. But don't forget, as good as Padilla has looked, because the movement, the athleticism, he looks very polished as of recently. It looks good. Don't forget, this is a fighter that had multiple questionable losses on the regional scene years before joining the UFC. So depending on how you want to look at them, because they were spaced back some years, but you got names like Darren Smith Jr., Devin Brock, Nate Andrews. Of course, we know Gabe Green, so that's not the worst look. Cristian Aguilera, we are familiar with him, a lower level fighter that made it into the UFC somehow, didn't last long at all, should have never really been fighting inside the octagon. Jason Gonzalez had a knockout against him. There's a lot of losses going on, to start his career, and not even just to start, right, towards the middle as well. So, I mean, this is a 16-6 fighter. The victories that he's had inside the UFC, they're not against extremely high-level competition. Now, Bonfim is not proven in that sense either. He has 25 professional fights already before hitting 30, but before joining the UFC, you're not really going to rave about the level of competition either. And the fighters that he's been in the octagon with that are high-level fighters fighting at a high level, he came up short. Right? We saw what BSD did to him. Nazim Salikhov hit him with a nasty question mark kick that essentially had him, I don't know, I don't want to be too harsh, but if you guys remember, Bonfim was like shaking his head, yeah, but was verbalizing that he couldn't see and basically didn't want to continue. And it was a nasty question mark kick that he opened himself up to by being overly aggressive, which is something that definitely will happen again with him and the way that he fights. Okay, but it'll also pay dividends as well, and he will find finishes inside the octagon because he's well-rounded and he's dangerous. Specifically with his striking. You look at the Vince Pichel fight, the Terrence McKinney victory. That was a nasty finish where you hit him with the flying knee. That was crazy, but we do know that T-Rex is very vulnerable to being knocked out. But on that same token, T-Rex also is very live to knock people out. So give Bonfim some credit for not getting knocked out. And he looked quite dominant on DWCS, as well as him and his brother both had victories on that same event. And since then, he hasn't been extremely active. This is a big fight for him. He can't have another mishap. He needs to go out here. I think that Bonfim needs to fight a more tactical and safe fight. He needs to take a little chip off the block of what Padilla just did, because I think that Padilla will do that here. And if Bonfim gets overly aggressive, I would not be surprised if Padilla capitalizes and hurts him in this fight and kind of takes over the fight by landing a big strike. And the one other thing I'll say is Bonfim has shown to be very open to the body kicks. Now, BSD and Nazim Sadiakov are both southpaws. Padilla doesn't necessarily fight the same exact way, but I'm curious to see if he could work the body of Bonfim like they both did, because he seems to be very open. He has a high guard and he takes a lot of damage there. All in all, I'm going to say that Bonfim gets the job done here. I'm going to say that he wins the decision, and the difference in this fight is the aggressiveness that we see from Bonfim and the points that he'll score. And I think that the countering type of style that Padilla is going to have, he'll have a little bit of success, but it's going to cost him a little bit as he loses a round or two by just not being active enough. This could be a really good fight. It just depends on how it's going to play out with a couple variables going on here. Now we see Bonfim opened up over here as a -200, and now he's a -235. That line movement seems very interesting to me because when I see Bonfim opening up as a -200, I think that this line's going to go the other way. So to see it going down this way points towards, in my opinion, it points towards something kind of coming out with leaking confidence and what Bonfim has going on. And I think he's coming in fully healthy and ready to go for this fight. But still, even with that being said, I wouldn't be willing to cough up a line like this. I would want Bonfim, realistically, I would want Bonfim at around a -185, -190. That's where I have this fight capped. I think that the value is on the underdog here. If you want to bet this fight straight up on the money line, I would definitely advise you to be betting on Bonfim. And, maybe you can get a really nice tag on him to win a decision. He's a fight finisher, but maybe you can get some value on that type of target. It's a good fight. Let's see how it plays out. Give me Bonfim to win via decision. Both Ricky Simón and Raoni Barcelos fought on that fight night Buckley versus Usman event that took place about 4 months ago. Both were victorious. Simón took out the young prospect, if you will, Cameron Smotherman, while Barcelos bullied the corpse of Cody Garbrandt, the shell of Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, he's nowhere near the fighter he once was. And it's for a completely different reason than just age, because Barcelos is 38 years old. He was 38 years old at the time of that fight. Cody was the younger fighter, but we know Garbrandt is just damaged up. So take that victory for what you will. As both of these fighters have had a recent resurgence in their careers after going through some adversity, it's really Ricky that stands out to me more so. He's the younger fighter. He's 33. He still has more time to make noise in this division. And although he's only on a 2-fight winning streak, and a lot of people wouldn't put too much merit into a victory over Cameron Smotherman, I still liked what he's been showing inside the cage, and it has a lot to do with the victory that he had over Javid Basharat, which he came into that fight as a big-time underdog. And I know Basharat has had a lot of issues in the cage and has shown not to be the fighter we all once thought he was or could be. But you saw in that fight that Ricky has been working diligently on his head movement, his speed, and his striking, which is something that he needed to catch up to the fighters towards the top of this division, because we seen him in there with those types of fighters, and he consistently came up short. And not only did he come up short, he was typically mismatched against them, right? You think about what Loke Dog did to him. Mario Batista was ahead of him. The Song Yadong fight, that was a bad one. That was the headliner where he just had nothing for him on the feet. And I truly believe that Ricky went back to the drawing board and put in a lot of work to make himself a more complete fighter. I see it when I watch his tape. There's limited stuff to look at. It's just 2 fights, but I'm a believer that Ricky has taken his game to another level, and we've seen the power translate in his striking with that knockout that he had over Basharat. And then when you're looking at Barcelos, it's not that I haven't liked what we've seen from him, but I kind of turned my back on Barcelos after he lost to Victor Henry. Okay, this was once a fighter that I had as being a dark horse in this division. We know he has the wrestling credentials. He has slick striking. He's fast. He brought a lot to the table. He was the whole package. But now he's 38 years old, and the way that he fell flat against Victor Henry was just a really bad look. And actually, it was even before that too, right? It was the Timur Valiev fight, which a lot of people had respect for Valiev, so we didn't look at that loss as harshly. But you see what started to happen that led up to the Umar Nurmagomedov KO loss, which, as great as Umar is, he's not really going out there and doing that consistently. Kyler Phillips was able to stifle him. Phillips had the recipe in that match: stuff the takedowns, be the more slick striker. And then you take a look at this 3-fight winning streak that he's on. That we were just talking about Quiñonez. I'm not that high on him as a complete fighter in his grappling. Barcelos was able to exploit him there. He was able to exploit Peyton Talbot's grappling. And then Garbrandt is the shell of himself. So I'm not putting too much merit into this 3-fight winning streak when you mix into the fact that he's 38 and age is catching up to him. I like Ricky here. I do. I like Ricky. I think that he has more to offer here. I think that Ricky will defend any of the wrestling attack that Barcelos tries to throw at him. He'll stuff those takedowns. I think that Ricky can make this an ugly fight where you could see him, bobbing and weaving, using that head movement and throwing nasty, heavy hooks. And I don't know if he's going to find a KO here. but I think he could land some damage in this fight. And I'll say that Ricky Simón wins a decision. And you take a look at some of the numbers real quick. Ricky, he wins the bulk majority of his victories by decision. He has that grappling ability as well, but Barcelos, it's looking like a decision loss here for me. Even as old as Barcelos is, I think the finish would be much more rare, and you're going to see the line reflect that. You're most likely going to see Simón very favored to win this fight via decision, so you shop some value there. But this is a decision call for sure for me. We take a look at the money line where Simón was a -175 over here, and now he's a -168. So that line is coming down. Not necessarily a shocker, because I don't think that Simón should be a huge favorite here. But I probably have this fight capped as Ricky being a -170, -175. So I would keep an eye on the line movement, see how far it comes down. We got two Ultimate Fighter veterans squaring off here in Matt Schnell and Joseph Morales. Of course, Morales just won his season. If you guys remember back in the day, though, Schnell was on the Ultimate Fighter. And I found this interesting, right? First and foremost, you guys know I got a lot of love for Matt Schnell. I always root him on. He's a great dude. We interviewed him back in the day, and you got to love the fighting spirit that he brings to the cage. I mean, this dude brings it like no other. But, you take a look back to when he was on the show, where he was submitted by Tim Elliott, and then he was also finished by Rob Font in the finale, okay? After that, he takes another L to Hector Sandoval. Now, he was on a 3-fight losing skid, and I'm not saying that he should have been cut by the UFC, because obviously he shouldn't have. I mean, the amount of classics that he's put on since the UFC hung on to him, there's been a lot of them. Okay, so he's really entertained for us, and he went on to have a lot of success as well. After that loss, he went on a 4-fight winning streak. I mean, he's had his ups and downs, but what makes this interesting to me is, as you scroll through his career, was Joseph Morales was essentially let go by the UFC after losing 2 fights. And one was to Devison Figueiredo, the longtime flyweight champion. He got knocked out by him. And then he lost a split decision to Eric Shelton, also a fighter that was on the Ultimate Fighter. And I think that was a big mistake, because Morales has been very entertaining to watch. Unfortunately, he's been very inactive throughout the years. He went over to Cage Warriors. He was averaging like about a fight a year, but he eventually did get that opportunity to fight on this recent Ultimate Fighter season, and he looked phenomenal. The Imanol Rodriguez victory, it aged very well. That kid's looking to be the real deal, so I do put a lot of merit on that victory. He had the submission over Eduardo da Silva, and he had just had his most recent victory, of course, where he defeated Alibi Adiris to win the show. And I think that these victories, they're kind of under the radar, but these are legitimate victories. And if you actually dive into the tape, or if you guys remember the performances, I mean, Morales is moving really well inside the cage right now. He's flowing. Okay, that's what he's doing. He's flowing. I would say he's having, the majority of his success with his grappling. In fact, he actually had 2 submission victories over Alibi in that last bout. If you remember, he had the rear naked choke. He was definitely going to finish that up before the bell rang, and then he slaps on a triangle in the next round. So, I mean, he just looked phenomenal. His striking's not the most technical, but he's super game, and he knows what he's doing. He's smooth with his movement. His footwork is very good. Schnell, I would say, is a little bit more technical, but he's taken a lot of damage throughout the years. He's technical all across the board. He has nasty jiu-jitsu, nasty wrestling, slick striking, but he can be a little slow at times defensively, and it costs him a lot. He gets touched up quite a bit, and I think that Morales can hurt him on the feet. I think that in a wild type of fight, where Schnell can at times pull off comebacks and have success and go through the ups and downs, I don't think it's going to quite play out like that for him here. I think that Morales is going to be ahead of the game here. I think he's going to dominate the grappling positions. And if not dominate, he's going to be ahead. I'm going to say that Bopo finds the submission here over Schnell. And, I don't know if I'll have money on that, but if I'm not going to have money on that, I hope that's not the case. I wish nothing but the best for Schnell, but we have seen him finished a lot of times. You take a look at his 9 losses, 5 come by way of KO, 4 come by way of sub. And Morales he's quite a fight finisher, especially with the way he's moving right now. I think that he's going to find a submission here. I think, and we see some wacky scrambles kind of going on, but Morales is in a dominant position, and he finds something. He could roll to his back. He could be on top position. And that's even with saying Schnell knows what he's doing. He's a sharp fighter, but Bopo's moving well. He's 31 years old. He has a lot more left to offer the fight game. He's more hungry, right? He hasn't had the lengthy UFC career, right? That's what I started talking about to kick this segment off. He's still hungry. He wants to prove the UFC and everybody wrong for the fact that he was cut in the first place. You know, Schnell has had this lengthy career. He's had opportunities to have the success that he's had, and you give him credit for having the success as well. But now it's Bopo's time. I mean, that's how you got to see the fight. And in my opinion, Joseph Morales right now is right around a minus 245. He opened up as a minus 240. I have him capped right around there. I have him being like a minus 250 to 260. I think that's an accurate line. I have him being a hefty favorite like he is. So I think the line's accurate, and I like him to find a finish in this bout. Just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks for rolling with me through this show. Hope you didn't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and go follow me on my social media. I appreciate you guys. Back to the show. And that will take us over to the main event. We head over to the welterweight division where we have Gabriel Bonfim taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. I'll let you guys know right now, I was very much back and forth with my selection for this fight. And in fact, I think I just changed my mind as I'm jumping into this segment. Gabriel Bonfim, without a doubt, is a nasty submission artist. He's very dangerous early on. We saw that on full display when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. He went out there and pulled off a nasty Von Flue choke over Trey Waters. And what I like about Bonfim is you take a look at his resume. He has such a wide variety of submissions. Okay, he has a very diverse submission attack that he could threaten you with. He has very long limbs. You think about the Darce choke that he pulled off against K.S. Williams. That was disgusting. If you guys remember, the commentary team, in fact, Paul Felder was on it, and he was saying as the submission was happening, I don't think this is in deep enough. There's no way he has that in deep enough. And next thing you know, you see Bonfim jump off Chaos, and Chaos is asleep. All right, we've seen him go out there and pull off subs, typical guillotine chokes like he did against Trevin Giles. The Minor Lazez submission in the first round, the mounted guillotine choke was nasty. Okay, and what do you think he was doing on the regional scene? Pulling off submissions left and right. And I think that he's going to be a serious threat to submit Randy Brown specifically early on in this fight. And we have seen Randy struggle in that light before. If you think about what Jack Della Maddalena did to him, Jack, we're going to be talking a lot about Jack here in the near future, and he has taken his grappling game to another level, especially as of recently. But Jack is known for his striking, and I don't think that you should be going out there, at least back at that time, you shouldn't be going out there and be getting subbed by Jack Della Maddalena in the first round in just over 2 minutes. You shouldn't be getting caught in a rear naked choke. I thought that was a bad look, and I think that Bonfim is going to be a serious threat to replicate something similar to that. And we've also seen Randy Brown KO'd before. He's been vulnerable to being finished in that sense. You think about the Nico Price KO loss. That was ridiculous. He got hit with the hammer fist as Nico was in bottom position. That was disgusting. But I will say this, Randy Brown has also had a lot of success, and he's long and he's well-rounded and he has tricky striking. And you want to talk about knockouts. I mean, we were just talking about it earlier, the knockout victory that he had over Muslim Salikhov. Just touched him with that straight right, put him out. Okay, so he has that type of power as well. And we have seen that Bonfim gets uncomfortable in a real fight. If the fight starts to unravel, he does have, I don't know if I want to say holes in his game. He's a young fighter, but he's not fully polished. And we saw that when he faced off against Nicholas Dalby. When Dalby was able to push that fight to the second round, I believe it was, as he started to make it a real fight, that's when we saw Bonfim breaking down, and he didn't really like what he was dealing with. He wasn't ready for it. He wasn't used to it. Meanwhile, Dalby, Randy Brown knocked Dalby out. Just to do a little bit of MMA math there. That's the fight that Randy Brown's coming into this match off of. Okay, but here's what I'll say. Bonfim, you look back at some of those performances, like the Dalby performance, that fight took place 2 years ago. He was 26 at the time. I think in the last 2 years, he is taking his game to another level. I feel confident in saying that. I could just imagine the work that he's putting in. He's already such a raw talent. And then you're looking at Randy, he's 35. You could still say he has a lot left to offer the game, but I think it's Bonfim that's bringing a little bit more to the table here. I wasn't crazy about Bonfim's last fight against Wonderboy. In fact, I had him losing that fight. Okay, I'll say that right now. So think about that. I had him losing the fight against Thompson. I think it was a robbery. I thought it was very clear that Thompson took 2 of those 3 rounds. When you look at the damage that was landed and whatnot, that was a bad decision. Okay, it was a very frustrating decision that they did Thompson like that late in his career. That was a W he should have had. But Thompson isn't an easy fighter to go out there and take down, let alone submit. Okay, Thompson has been training for fighters that want to take him down from the very beginning. He's been in there with elite fighters, and even up in age, Thompson still brings a lot to the table. And it wasn't a good look for Bonfim, but Thompson, he's crafty, man, and it was just one of those types of fights. So I think that this could be a solid bounce back performance for Bonfim. I think that the submission is very live, but I don't say it with a lot of confidence. That's going to be my final pick here. I'm going to say that Bonfim submits Randy Brown in this fight, and it's going to happen early on. I think that he gets a submission within the first 2 rounds. I think that Randy will make a mistake that Bonfim can capitalize on. Now, if the submission doesn't happen early on, I could easily see Rude Boy bringing this fight into his world. And I also believe that Rude Boy is even dangerous early on, but specifically as the fight progresses, you may see the experience of Rude Boy just take over, and he uses that length and his striking abilities to take over this fight. Not to say that Bonfim hasn't shown flashes with his striking, but he's not as comfortable there in lengthy exchanges where Brown is. Brown will settle in and he'll go to war. We've seen him do it. So there's a lot of common opponents between the two of them, and a lot of those bouts played out completely different. Like Chaos Williams and Randy Brown went to war. It was a very closely contested match. Meanwhile, Bonfim goes out there and sleeps Chaos. There's a lot of like moving parts with who they've been in there with, and you could take little tidbits from those matches when you break down the common opponents, but it's kind of hard to fully say what's going to happen here because this is the fight game, and you guys know how it goes, man. Everything shakes out differently. Every match is different, but this bout right now to me is saying Bonfim gets the submission. And you see, I got the Randy Brown line pulled up as he's a plus 150. I would lean towards the value being on Randy Brown on a straight up money line pick because I was very close to picking him, like I said. So Bonfim's right around a minus 175. Now that line is too steep for me. Even at minus 155, I don't know if I would be jumping out of my seat. I definitely would look to dive into a submission target maybe on Bonfim, see what you can get there, which it's going to be priced pretty high anyway, but you could search for an early sub and see if you get some good value there. I think he's going to be very live to pull off the sub, specifically early on in the first 2 rounds. That's my call. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. As some of you guys could probably hear as we got into the main event, my voice is starting to give out a little bit, and that's a good sign, man. That means that we went to work here. We dove into this card, and I've been talking on this mic for quite a bit. So, please, guys, before you get out of here, smash that like button, subscribe. Any feedback is welcome. Meet me in the comment section. I hope you guys are all doing well out there. I'm going to leave you guys with some quick parting words. Nothing crazy. It's not a big event, but I'll just leave you guys with this. The weather is getting nice here in the States. It's probably pretty nice if you're in the States, anywhere you are overall. I mean, the weather is cooling down even in the southern part of the country. And if you're in the States, I hope you're enjoying it. Depending on where you're at in the world, I don't know how the weather is for you. If you're over there in Ecuador, it's probably still pretty warm. If you're on the southern hemisphere, I don't know what's going on down there. But if the weather is nice, take full advantage of that. Get out there, feel that nice cool breeze on your neck, and go enjoy yourself. And in fact, no matter where you're at, whoever is listening to this, if you're out in a blizzard, if you're out in the snow, if you're out in Russia, if you're in the North Pole, if you're in Africa, you're in Australia, I don't know where you're at, whoever you are listening to this, take advantage of being outside in general. Go feel that warm, hot breeze with the kangaroo jumping on the side of you out in the desert if you're in Australia, or if you're over there in a blizzard and a monsoon, go feel that freezing snow hit your neck. But take it in and enjoy yourself and be grateful for every minute you have, every second you have. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Signing out, Teller.